Hi guys, welcome back to science class. I am Miss Anne Okara. You should know me by now. And this is science class. The last time in our science class, we looked at pulley, a type of simple machine. And today we're going to be looking at inclined planes. And inclined planes is also a type of simple machine. So let's dive right in. Let's begin. So, what is an inclined plane? An inclined plane is also known as a ramp. That's the first thing we have just learned in today's class. That an inclined plane can also be called a ramp. Now, what is an inclined plane or what is a ramp? A ramp or an inclined plane is simply a flat surface. A flat surface that has one end in a higher elevation. It consists of a sloping surface which can be used to raise objects. Inclined plane simply means a flat surface that you place with one end being higher than the other. In the position of a slide, I mean, every one of us knows what a slide is. You can imagine what a slide looks like. Very good. So you have your slide. Now you have one side to be high, the other side to be low. That is a typical example of an inclined plane. So it's called inclination, going up. That means one side higher, the other side lower. You can see this guy here that is trying to push this load. Okay, he's trying to make it easier for himself to transport these luggages or those boxes into this vehicle. So you can observe that this vehicle has a flat surface, one part that is resting on the vehicle, the edge of the vehicle, and the other side touching the ground. That is what an inclined plane or a ramp looks like. So that thing that is coming out of the vehicle is called a ramp. So you can see this every day in trucks. When they it's kind of like a slide, like I've said. So they use it to push down or raise every object. So you push it up, you slide it down. So you can see that is an example of a simple machine. So this is like a real life actual example of a ramp. So you can see that a ramp is a sloped surface. It's sloped, it's inclined. Okay, so it connects two different heights. That is a higher height and a lower height. So it's used to connect two different distance, okay, two different levels. And it helps to facilitate the movement of objects and people. So it's not just objects that can be moved on a ramp. People can also be moved on a ramp. Okay, now example of people that can move the ramp, like those who are making use of a wheelchair. So instead of them moving on this staircase, know that it's difficult for you to roll the wheels of your wheelchair. It's difficult to roll it along the staircase. So they have this flat, smooth surface called a ramp that helps them to move around. So some vehicles even have it. So you can have a car that can have the ramp so that the person on wheelchair finds it easy to enter into the vehicle and come out of a vehicle. So this is an actual real life example of what a ramp or an inclined plane looks like. So it helps you to move objects or people from one level to another with less effort. Good. So now that we know what an inclined plane is, we've learned that an inclined plane is also known as a ramp. And an inclined plane is basically a flat surface that has two ends, and one end is higher than the other. So let's look at examples of inclined plane. The first example I have is an actual ramp. You can see that board. So you can use what I was talking about. So like sliding from up to down, from higher to lower. So you can see the ball moving up and down, sliding up and down that ramp. So that is exactly what an inclined plane looks like. Now you can see an example of an inclined plane in a slide. The girl is sitting on the higher part, the higher end of the slide, and she's going to move down to the lower end of the slide that is touching the ground. Another example we have is your pedestrian ramp. Now that pedestrian ramp is very, very useful for those on wheelchairs. It helps them to be able to move up and down a building or up and down a place. Instead of making use of the stairs, because the stairs is very, very difficult and uncomfortable for them to walk with. So you have a pedestrian ramp that is constructed basically for them, specifically for them. So you can see it's easy for them to move their tires up and down that pedestrian ramp. Another example you have is a roof. So the shape of your roof, you can see your roof. higher end, lower end, higher end, lower end. So that your roof, the slanted roof, is what another example of an inclined plane. So anything that is in a sliding position is what an inclined plane. Then lastly, we have another example in your stairs, your staircase. I mean, you have to move up, you have to move down. So another example of your inclined plane is your staircase. So we have seen that we have so many examples of inclined plane. We have seen it in a truck, we have seen it in your skateboard ramp, in a slide, pedestrian ramp, even in your roof, the roof of your house, and in a staircase. So you can see that this is a very, very simple and interesting topic. So what are the applications of an inclined plane? Now, an inclined plane reduces the force that you need to move heavy objects over a vertical distance. So it helps you to reduce the force, helps you to reduce your effort. Like I said, it's easy to move heavy objects. You push it up, you slide it down, push it up, slide it down. So it reduces the force that you need to use to move heavy objects. It also makes loading truck, using wheelchair and traveling on an escalator, it makes it easier. Like I said, example in trucks, those objects in the trucks are very, very heavy. So all they have to do is to slide it up and slide it down. So also for wheelchair, people using wheelchair, it makes it very, very comfortable for them to move around. And you can also be seen in every object like your playground slides, your staircase, the roof of your house, and so on. So on your own, can you give me more examples of inclined plane? Don't forget objects that have this shape. So higher end and lower end. And with that, we have come to the end of today's science class on inclined planes. Don't forget, I'm looking forward to your examples. Okay. So see you in the next class. Bye.